It is Friday, February 20th, 2026 at Protestia Studios, and this is an intelligence briefing coming to you from Protestia.com, where as always find the latest in Christian polemics and discernment news. Sign up for the Insurgency email blast and join us by becoming an insider supporter over at patreon.com/Protestia. Let's get into the headlines. First headline at Protestia.com. Pastor faces 150 years in prison for major retail theft. A pastor and wife duo who stole more than $2 million in a retail theft scheme are facing up to 150 and 30 years in prison, respectively, after being found guilty of violating the RICO Act, that's Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. Robert Dell is the former pastor of the Rock Church in St. Petersburg, Florida. He and his wife, Jacqueline, were arrested in 2023, along with 4 other conspirators, and accused of stealing merchandise from Home Depot stores in the area, stashing it at their home, and then selling it on eBay under the, quote, anointed liquidator store. This endeavor netted them more than $2 million in profits over a decade and cost Home Depot more than $5 million in losses. Because the church ran Recovery Program, a halfway house that helped people recover from addiction, Dell was accused of using his position to manipulate other vulnerable people to participate in the criminal scheme. Attorney General James Uthmeyer noted these fraudsters hid their true motives behind faith and charity to launder proceeds from a large-scale criminal enterprise. According to the press release by the Attorney General's office, following a 2-week jury trial, Robert was found guilty and charged of RICO, conspiracy to commit RICO, dealing in stolen property, and money laundering. Jacqueline was also found guilty as charged of conspiracy to commit RICO. The two will be sentenced next month on March 13th. Next headline at Protestia.com. Reverend Jesse Jackson, dead at 84 years old. The famed civil rights leader, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, passed away early this morning at the age of 84. Of course, this was a couple days ago at this point. I think it was 3 days ago that this actually happened. Following a long battle with Parkinson's disease, we have the statement from his family screenshotted over at Protestia.com. The founder of Push, the infamous civil rights group he started more than 50 years ago, Jackson was also known for his liberal and progressive beliefs, including being pro-choice and pro-LGBTQ. In particular, he was often accused of race baiting and fanning racial tensions rather than seeking to calm them down. You could read more over at Protestia.com. Next headline, mega church pastor with 120,000 members secretly divorces his wife and doesn't tell his church. This is Pastor at Boshoff, Adam. This is Adam. His full name, Adam Johannes Jacobus Boshoff, is the founder and senior pastor of Christian Revival Church, a large South African megachurch based in Bloemfontein with over 90 campuses worldwide and more than 120,000 members. A televangelist whose services reach millions across the world, he had shared a stage with figures like Stephen Furtick, Ed Young, John Bevere, Samuel Rodriguez, Rodney Howard-Browne, and others, a prominent figure in South African Christianity for over 3 decades. If you want a glimpse of what type of pastor he is, we have a clip over at the Protestia X account from the 2015 C3 conference, saying he would fire anyone for disloyalty, and that he once fired a pastor for saying he serves God and not man. And apparently on December 5th, 2025, is since deleted post, CRC London shared a celebratory message to the blessed couple, wishing them a happy anniversary. This is at and his wife, or then wife, we should say, who headed up the creative arts ministry and directed the music ministry of the congregations in Bloemfontein, Pretoria, and Johannesburg, and was the executive producer of CRC's in-house praise and worship music release albums. Let's take a look at the shot here. This is the post you can see on the screen, wishing at and Naretta Boshoff a happy anniversary. What they didn't know, what no one would know for more than a year, is that the couple filed for divorce and had formalized it a few months before in October of 2024, according to recently unearthed court documents. With the divorce being unopposed, meaning that Naretta did not contest it, Project CB News, notes that the separation likely occurred in late 2023 or early 2024. By all accounts, the church leadership had no intention of saying anything, if not for the story being revealed by the South African newspaper Rapport on December 20th, 2025. Yet even now, despite the news having been broken, it has not been widely reported. Many CRC members, that's members of the actual church itself, remain unaware of the divorce, and numerous comments online continue to question the validity and reliability of the reports. In other words, people at the church, his big mega church, multi-campuses and all of this, are questioning whether the reporting that he actually got divorced is even true. Yes, it is true. You can read more about this over at protestia.com, including a link to the original article from the South African newspaper. And they probably, I don't know if they pronounce it reports or rapport. I could see it going either way, but it was reported back in December of last year, and only now is starting to gain a little bit of traction in more mainstream and American evangelical circles, it seems. Next headline at protestia.com, a pastor made 50 sex tapes with his wife. Now he's bleeding congregants as new revelations emerge. A prominent Indiana pastor is under fire after it was revealed he made more than 50 sex tapes with his wife, adding to mounting questions about the church's handling of sexual matters and accusations about an unhealthy obsession with the subject. This is Nathan Peternell, the lead pastor of Life Church, a multi-site church, and this is not lifechurch.tv as far as I understand, but this is a multi-site megachurch with 4 locations in Indiana, one of which is led by State Lieutenant Governor Micah Beckwith. Last year, is it Paternal or Paternell? I'm not sure, but his son Jonathan was arrested for possessing violent torture child pornography and was recently sentenced to 6 years in prison. While searching his devices, however, investigators discovered more than 50 videos of Nathan and his wife naked and having sex. The revelation caused a furor in the church, with members questioning how the videos got there, clamoring for answers, and causing tensions in the church. Church leadership repeatedly told congregants to stop talking about it, but in the face of mounting interest and speculation, the pastor finally addressed his church during a private, closed-door meeting, explaining, quote, "There are a lot of accusations circulating and being circulated, and some of them are blatantly false, some of them are twisted, and some of them are without context. But in the midst of all of these things, there's a reality that I need to own and I need to address." He says, "Within the covenant of our marriage, my wife and I created private, intimate photos and videos. Although these files were password protected, they were hacked. And they were hacked from a device without our consent." I don't think he probably understands what hacked actually means, but it is a controversial story no matter what. You can read more about it over at protestia.com and see some of the information from this closed door meeting. We're going to move on. Next headline at Protestia: the McRaney case, that is the Will McRaney case, is a disaster for Baptists, and many don't see it. For nearly a decade, many Southern Baptists have seen McRaney versus NAM, this is a 2017 originating lawsuit, as a narrow legal dispute between one former state convention executive and a national SBC entity. It is not simply that. I wrote this over at Protestia a couple of years ago, and if you are interested in not only SBC, but general church polity matters, and especially how church organizations, parachurch ministries like the Southern Baptist Convention relate to the civic order, our legal system, secular courts, and whatnot, it is highly worth your read. But to sum it up, basically the issue here between Will McRaney and the North American Mission Board is not just sort of an inter-ministerial dispute here. It actually may have far-reaching consequences for especially denominations like the Southern Baptist Convention, where voluntary cooperation, autonomous church authority, autonomous ministries and things like this are the way that we do things. I think it is well worth your time. We probably will, but we'll see how much time we have. Dig into this on either the Bully Pew podcast or on Protestia Tonight to explain it a little bit more. But for starters, this article does a lot of work in explaining exactly what's going on, including the big dangers of the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals decision, at least so far, to to basically consider the Southern Baptist Convention a hierarchical denomination for purposes of the ministerial exception for free speech. But read more over at Protestia to see more about this. Next headline, Christian social worker who lost job over biblical marriage view wins appeal. This from Christian Today. A Christian social worker whose offer of a job was withdrawn over public comments he made about marriage and sexuality has won his case at appeal. Touchstone Leads, a mental health and well-being charity and NHS provider, withdrew the conditional job to offer Felix Nagoli after discovering, the conditional job offer they had offered to Felix Nagoli after discovering his past statements expressing a traditional view of marriage and sexuality. At a previous employment tribunal, the charity argued that LGBTQIA++ XYZ service users might discover his views online and suffer distress or negative mental health consequences. Of course, this is coming to us, Christian Today, the article, is coming to us from the UK. That's where the National Health Services are. And as we all know, the United Kingdom, Canada to a certain extent, but certainly in Europe, they are much less friendly to free speech rights for gentlemen like this. So this seems to be a very good development on its surface. But read more over at protestia.com. There is a link to the original article at Christian Today. That is not Christianity Today, Christian Today. Next headline at protestia.com. Megachurch leader, American Idol alum arrested for killing his wife. A former American Idol alum and megachurch worship leader has been arrested and charged in the shooting death of his wife. Caleb Flynn was a worship pastor who auditioned for season 12 of American Idol, receiving one of a few dozen golden tickets straight to Hollywood while being featured on the show. He later became the worship director for Free Chapel, then took a sales job at Richard D. Smith & Sons, which sells commercial flooring with a focus on worship and church interiors. Caleb and his wife Ashley, along with their 2 children, were active members of Christian Life Center, where the former was involved with the worship team and music ministry. On the Monday morning, a 9/11 call came in saying that Ashley had been fatally shot in an apparent home invasion while he and the children slept. Tip City Police Chief Greg Atkins told reporters that she had been shot twice and there were signs of forced entry. She was a popular school teacher and taught at LifeWise Academy, a nonprofit that provides Bible-based education to public school teachers away from campus during school hours. 3 days later, Caleb was charged with 1 count of homicide, 2 counts of felonious assault, and 2 counts of tampering with evidence. If found guilty, he could be sentenced to death. We will be following this story closely, of course. That on protestia.com from Magdalene Hannah. You can read it over at Protestia. Last headline for this intelligence briefing: young conservative Methodist denomination gains 7,000 member churches. The Global Methodist Church, a conservative alternative to the thoroughly embattled and progressively captured United Methodist Church, announced this week that more than 7,000 member churches have joined their denomination. 5 months ago, they announced they had 6,000 churches, growing by 1,000 and reaching a new milestone that few thought possible just a few years ago. The Global Methodist Church was formed as a direct result of the United Methodist Church's acceptance of homosexuality and gay marriage, while conservative churches found it untenable. Launched in 2022 with only 24 churches, thousands of churches followed and sought union. Wasn't without difficulties, of course. Many churches were forced to jump through hoops to leave the UMC with their property, assets, and church buildings. Some faced $1 million exit fees. Others were told they would have to surrender their buildings to depart, and some did not receive clear exit terms and deadlines, making it impossible to split amicably. The new denomination shared on Facebook. Today on Ash Wednesday, we pause in humility and gratitude as we enter this sacred season of Lent. We also give thanks to the Global Methodist Church, which is that the Global Methodist Church has officially surpassed 7,000 churches worldwide. This moment reminds us growth isn't measured in numbers. It's found in repentance, renewal, and lives being transformed by Jesus Christ. As Wesleyans, we are called to holiness of heart and life, to return to the Lord and carry his love into every community. You can read more of this statement over at protestia.com, but in any case, it seems like a good development that there are those in the Methodist denomination willing to stand firm on what are really core tenets of the faith. Thank you for joining me for this intelligence briefing for Friday, the 20th of February, 2026. Stay tuned at protestia.com for all of your latest in Christian polemics and discernment news. We'll talk to you guys again real soon. As always, Semper Reformanda.